Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Making Monsters, The Uncanny Power of Dehumanization by David Livingstone Smith. Narrated by Timothy Andrés Pabon. That which has happened is a warning. To forget it is guilt. It must be continually remembered. It was possible for this to happen, and it remains possible for it to happen again at any minute. Only in knowledge can it be prevented. Carl Jaspers. Preface. Something like a darkness. They did not know that the Tutsi were human beings, because if they had thought about that, they wouldn't have killed them. Let me include myself as someone who accepted it. I wouldn't have accepted that they are human beings. Eli Garambe, a Hutu man, spoke these words to U.S. political scientist Daniel Jonah Goldhagen in 2008. Garambe was talking about his role in the 1994 Rwanda genocide, during which he bludgeoned and hacked Tutsi women, men, and children to death. Goldhagen confessed his perplexity at how anyone could perform the horrendous acts that were everyday occurrences during the Rwanda genocide. I find it hard to understand, he said, and I want to understand how people could approach other people who are begging for their lives and screaming in pain and chop them. In doing so, he expressed some sort of mute incomprehension that many of us experience when reading about these events, or about the horrors of the Nazi extermination camps, or about any of the all too frequent episodes of collective brutality that deface human history. Struggling to adequately describe the state of mind that allowed him to butcher his neighbors, Garambe responded, "That is a hard question to answer, because even though you did it, you know they had the same flesh as you." He then added, "It was very sad when a baby would cry. I did not kill children, but at some point you felt guilty. You would see an infant who's just learning to smile, and it smiles at you, but you still kill it. It was a cloud that came into people's hearts and covered them, and everything became dark. You are holding a machete over someone who is weak and saying, 'Please, I will give you money. Please forgive me.' Or a woman would say, 'I am a beautiful woman. Please take care of me.' But instead you kill them. This genocide, when we look back and think about it, it is beyond our ability to understand. I cannot explain it. The only answer I can give is that it was like being in a fog, something like a darkness." In the first statement, Eli Garambe claimed that he did not think of those that he killed as human beings. This may sound strange. How can one human being regard another human being as not really human? Was he insane? There is no reason to think Garambe was suffering from schizophrenic delusions that compromised his grasp of reality. He was, in all likelihood, a psychologically normal man, albeit one who participated in one of the most hideous bloodlettings of the 20th century. The claim that Eli Garambe really believed that fellow Rwandans were subhuman creatures may strike you as preposterous. So preposterous that you might jump to the conclusion that his testimony was just a pathetic alibi that was intended to excuse the inexcusable. Or you might think that he meant it to be taken metaphorically, perhaps as meaning that he did not have empathy for the people that he butchered, rather than literally. But I am going to argue in the chapters to follow that both of these alternatives are mistaken. Instead, I submit that Eli Garambe, like so many others who have acted similarly, meant his words to be taken literally, as a true description of his state of mind. The act of conceiving of other human beings as subhuman creatures is not limited to a single culture or just one historical period. It can be traced across thousands of years of human history and found in many far-flung regions of the globe. The evidence is overwhelming that we human beings periodically view other members of our species as not really people at all, but rather as less than human beings that it is morally permissible or even obligatory to harm or to kill. It is because dehumanization is so entangled with and implicated in the worst atrocities that human beings have ever perpetrated upon one another that investigating it is an important, indeed, an urgent task. But strangely enough, there has not been much research into the nature of dehumanization. Most academic disciplines have all but ignored it, and have treated dehumanization as though it were already well understood. Only social psychology can boast of anything like a substantial research literature dealing with what goes on in people's heads when they think of other people as less than human. It was the paucity of research into dehumanization, conjoined with its great importance, that inspired me to write my 2011 book, Less Than Human: Why We Demean, Enslave, and Exterminate Others, which remains the only interdisciplinary study of the subject in the English language, or, to the best of my knowledge, any other language. Writing it, I worked my way through relevant literatures in a number of disciplines, history, philosophy, anthropology, and psychology, among others, to pull together, order, and analyze all the information I could find about this disturbing phenomenon. In Less Than Human, I sought to answer 3 fundamental questions, as well as a number of important but less weighty ones, about dehumanization. First, I wanted to figure out exactly what dehumanization is, and to distinguish it from related phenomena such as objectification, racism, and xenophobia. Second, I wanted to develop a theory of how dehumanization works, using the best psychological tools currently available. And third, I wanted to establish why dehumanization occurs, by determining what, if any, function it has. I believe that I made considerable headway in answering all 3 of these questions, and I continue to stand by much of what I wrote in Less Than Human. However, over the intervening years, I became dissatisfied with certain aspects of the analysis, and decided that my story was both incomplete and in some respects misleading. The book that you are listening to now rectifies these deficits and presents an account of dehumanization that is far more powerful and subtle, one that captures the peculiar phenomenology of dehumanization far more effectively than its predecessor did. In Less Than Human, I argued that when we dehumanize others, we conceive of them as appearing human when they are really subhuman. I now think that this story is not exactly right. What actually occurs when we dehumanize others is much stranger and more toxic. I now believe that when we dehumanize others, we conceive of them as being both human and subhuman, that is, wholly human and wholly subhuman at the same time. I am aware that this statement may sound bizarre or nonsensical. Logically speaking, it is no more possible for a being to be wholly human and wholly subhuman than it is for an object to be completely red and completely green at the same time. But forcing human psychology into the Procrustean bed of logic is a fool's errand. A logician may tell you that contradictions are always false, but human experience is no stranger to contradiction, and contradiction lies at the core of dehumanization. One need only revisit Eli Garambe's words to see this weird contradiction at work. He insists, in the first quotation, that he did not think of his victims as human, but also states in the second quotation that those whom he murdered had the same flesh, that is, were beings of the same kind as himself. The tension between conceiving of the other as human and conceiving of them as less than human is a very important feature of dehumanization, and understanding this unlocks many of its otherwise puzzling characteristics. It explains why dehumanized people are so often represented as monsters, demons, or predators, why they are so often regarded as uncanny affronts to the natural order, and why they are so often treated with a particular kind of gratuitous cruelty and degradation. Understanding the paradoxical character of dehumanization also gives us purchase on a pair of crucial methodological problems. It casts light on the vexing problem of how to distinguish genuine dehumanization from superficially similar phenomena, such as the use of animalistic slurs, and it also suggests a way to track the silent forms of dehumanization that do not involve explicitly labeling others as subhuman beings. It was already beginning to dawn on me when writing Less Than Human that to understand dehumanization, one needs to understand a lot more than just dehumanization. Since then, I have come to appreciate this insight much more fully. It is impossible to really grasp how and why we are able to dehumanize others without considering the function of the concept of the human, the evolutionary background to human ultrasociality, the cognitive psychology of the uncanny, and theories of belief formation, to name just a few. And because dehumanization stands...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?